Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and what to expect from them next season. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I hope you enjoy the video. So when we start talking about the Steelers defense for 2020, I really want to go over why they were really good last year in 2019. For starters, they had 38 total takeaways, which were 20 interceptions and 18 fumble recoveries. They had 54 total sacks, as well as the Steelers defense had the fifth lowest in total yards allowed. It was the third lowest in passing yards allowed. It was the 14th lowest in rushing yards allowed. And it was the sixth lowest in total points allowed. I mean, the Steelers defense was absolutely elite. It was dominant. It stifled opponents. But really, what did they do? So for starters, they didn't stack the box a lot, yet they could still stop the run. If you look at their total rushing yards allowed, yes, they were 14th in the league in that, but that's still above average. And because they weren't stacking the box every time to stop the run, this allowed more guys to protect against the pass, which is one of the reasons why they were the third lowest team in total yards allowed via the air. Also, they're one of the more zone-heavy teams in the NFL. Mike Tomlin likes to utilize a zone defense because it allows him to have as many eyes on the football as possible. And this is one of the reasons why the defense last season for the Steelers was so dominant against the pass. Also, they were successful in getting to the quarterback with 4 or 5 pass rushers, which meant more guys could defend the pass. Really, this defense was so great because they took away the air game, and they were able to get a ton of sacks with 4 or 5 guys rushing the passer. So look for those trends to continue into 2020. So now let's just talk about the guys on this defense. Firstly, I'm going to start up front with Stephon Tuitt and Cameron Heyward. For starters, Stephon Tuitt is an absolute beast. He's one of the most underrated edge rushers in the NFL. And last season, he only played in 6 games, but he racked up 3.5 sacks, meaning that he would have been on pace for about 9 sacks, which would have been really, really solid. And opposite from him is Cameron Heyward. Cameron Heyward is one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, and last year he had 9 sacks in 16 games, and he had 83 total tackles. That's solo and assisted combined. So really, Tuitt and a healthy Tuitt and Cam Heyward are really going to be the leaders of this pass rush in Pittsburgh. I mean, they're both guys that can get to the quarterback, and they're both guys that can make an impact against the run too. So really look for that defensive front to be really fortified by them. Let's move on to the linebackers here. The linebackers are part of why the Steelers defense is so good. I'm going to start with TJ Watt. TJ Watt is an absolute phenom. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler and 1-time All-Pro member, and he has lived up to the family name. He is basically just J.J. Watt's younger brother, but he's producing like an absolute beast. Last season, he was, as I said, was a Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro member. He had 8 fumbles forced. He had 14.5 sacks, 55 total tackles. He was all over the place. He was an absolute beast. And even the year before, I mean, he had 13 sacks. So this isn't that last year wasn't just a one-year wonder sort of thing. I mean, he's proved to the NFL that he can be an elite sack guy. And TJ Watt is one of the hearts of this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So really look for him to continue that success into next year. Also, I mean, this Steelers defense is so awesome, especially with the linebackers. I'm going to talk about Vince Williams. Vince Williams is really, really, really solid. He's an underrated linebacker that can get to the quarterback. He had 2.5 sacks last year. The year before, he had 4.5 sacks. And in 2017, he had 8 sacks. So he can get to the quarterback, and he can make a difference that way. And also, he's just a solid guy. I mean, 55 combined tackles was really good for him last season. And just look for him to continue to be a solid guy in that defense. Also, the guy that I'm really excited about is Devin Bush. Devin Bush last year was kind of had an up and down season in his rookie year, but the former 10th overall pick was really solid at times. I mean, he had 1 sack. However, he had a fumble forced, and he was just all over the football field. He had 2 interceptions, and he was just a dominant guy who just really, he's basically a really hard tackler. He was another member of that really identity of what that Steelers defense is. He's a hard worker. He gets to the football. He's basically all over the field. He had 72 solo tackles and 37 assisted tackles for a total 109 combined tackles. I mean, he was electric. He was dominant. And yes, at times he did struggle, but when the times he was on, you saw why he was a first-round pick. Let's continue with the linebackers here with Bud Dupree. Dupree is another solid pass-rushing linebacker. He had 11.5 sacks last season and 68 combined tackles. And Dupree was just a really solid guy to pair alongside TJ Watt and be able to rush the passer. I mean, with guys like TJ Watt, Bud Dupree, Cameron Heyward last season, the Pittsburgh Steelers were really able to get to the quarterback, and this really helped with their defense. Also, on a side note, the Steelers did lose big guys like Mark Barron as well as Hargrave, the defensive tackle, who they ended up losing to the Eagles, I believe. Those are two big losses. However, the Steelers have more than enough talent on this defensive unit to make up for those losses. Now let's move to the Steelers' strong suit, the secondary. The secondary is probably one of the best secondaries in the NFL, or it's definitely up there. Headlined by Joe Haden, who is the Pro Bowl corner. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, and last season he really showed what it is to be a great corner. He had 5 interceptions. He had 65 combined tackles, but more importantly, he had 17 passes defended. Those are really good stats for him. And really what's awesome about Joe Haden is all the great corners in the NFL are really young. However, Haden is a top 10 corner in the NFL, and he's over 30 years old. So really look for him to continue that trend. I mean, he's really proved to himself in the NFL that he's a really lockdown, shutdown corner. And across from him is a guy who is also locked down in Steven Nelson. Nelson is another really, really solid athlete who last season, he only had 1 interception, but he had 8 passes defended, 61 combined tackles. He's another really solid corner to pair alongside Joe Haden. And also, don't forget about Mike Hilton. Hilton is another really good corner. The thing is, this Steelers defense has so many great defensive backs that it's really hard to throw against them, especially if they're only rushing 4 guys against the quarterback. That gives them a ton of DBs in the secondary to protect against the pass. So you're going to see a ton of looks where you're going to see Mike Hilton, Joe Haden, and Steven Nelson on the football field that are really just going to really break up passes. But going back to Mike Hilton for a second, Hilton was good last year. He had 1 interception, 65 combined tackles, and 11 passes defended. So really look for Mike Hilton to continue that role as the 3rd corner in that system, and he's really good too. But probably the best part about the Steelers secondary is the Minkah Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick was on the Dolphins last season, and he ended up being traded to the Steelers for a 1st-round pick. And as soon as he made it to the Steelers, he was an instant impact player. He had 5 interceptions. He had a pick 6. He was absolutely dominant. He had 57 combined tackles. He was all over the football field. He was a ball-hawking safety. And he was really this kind of guy. I'm not going to say he was Troy Polamalu, but he was someone that the Steelers defense has missed for a while. Polamalu obviously was an awesome safety who was all over the field. He could intercept the football, make plays on the football. He was just everywhere. Minkah Fitzpatrick was not necessarily Troy Polamalu, but what he did bring is he brought that edge that Troy Polamalu had, and he really just showed what it was to be a Steeler. As a Dolphins fan, I am very sad that Minkah Fitzpatrick is no longer with the team, but to see what he did last year with the Steelers was absolutely unbelievable. And he really gave that Steelers defense just another edge. And also they have Terrell Edmunds. Edmunds is a solid safety to pair next to Fitzpatrick. He was just a really solid guy last year. He didn't do that much statistically wise. He didn't rack up interceptions or pass deflections. But what he did do is he had 105 combined tackles, and he was just a solid player on that defense in Pittsburgh. Yet overall, this Steelers defense is going to be awesome next season. They have playmakers all over the football field. They have Pro Bowl players like literally everywhere on the football field. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've got TJ Watt, Cam Heyward, Joe Haden, Bud Dupree. Like all these guys are instant impact players that can literally make a difference on this team. As I said, they did lose Hargrave and Mark Barron earlier in free agency. But at the end of the day, the Steelers defense is just packed with talent. They have so much talent. And last year, the Steelers defense really carried the Steelers offense. But this year with Ben Roethlisberger back and hopefully a healthy James Conner and a healthy run game on the offensive side of football, maybe Juju Smith-Schuster getting back to his former self, this offense is going to be really good. And paired with this awesome defense that is easily a top 3, top 5 defense in the NFL, and they have the ability to be the best defense in the NFL, especially with the Patriots losing some big pieces in free agency. This Steelers defense could really catapult as the best defense in the NFL. So look for this great defense paired with a hopefully rebounding offense to really make the Steelers into a really, really good NFL team. And with that said, they could easily make a wild card, or maybe even they could win the division. I think it might be a little bit difficult against the Baltimore Ravens, but expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to be back in the playoffs next season if this defense is able to continue what they did last year. So for Steelers fans, get excited because this defense is going to be just as dominant as it was last season.
Now that you've reached the end of my video, I want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe as it helps my channel out, and check out my other videos on my channel. Also, you can follow my Instagram, the link is in the description down below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, see ya.